and welcome to the BetterU podcast, where we go in depth and get to listen to stories of hope, strength, and courage straight from some of the leading health, fitness, and wellness experts who help transform lives one person at a time. I am your host, RKaye, and today we are joined by the nutrition coach. See, I knew I would screw this up. Again, today we are joined by the nutrition coach pharmacist, Amy Wilson. Thank you for joining us today, Amy.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
And it is awesome to have you today on our show. I would like our guests to know more about you. So, of course, before you talk about your expertise, I'd love for you to share with us how did it all start out for you? Could you let us know what was it that made you get into nutrition, study being a pharmacist, and I'm sure you have a lot to share with us today. So, could you begin by letting us know how it all started for you?
Oh, um, played sports and danced all through high school, and went to college at the University of Toledo in Toledo, Ohio, and was bound and determined that I was not going to gain the freshman 15. That was uno number one, and I'm like, no, 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 we are not doing that. And I started going to a thing called Rocket Aerobics, where University of Toledo Rockets, called Rocket Aerobics. And
Yeah.
this is back in the 80s. So if anybody wants to know how old I am, you can figure out, do the math. Anyway, so it was, big hair, leotards, all that good stuff. And I loved it. And I was in the front row, and somebody said, hey, we're looking for instructors. You should teach. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm a pharmacy major. I'm taking 22 some credit hours, but I had a job at the library that absolutely was horrendous. I'm just not a person to do that kind of job. If anybody works in the library, good for you. I talk, so it wasn't a good job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? At that time, before I knew better, it was like, hey, I'm going to get paid to work out. How cool is that? And this was before a lot of the certifications, a lot of things that we know now. So I'm just going to put that disclaimer on there. And I started teaching high, low, if everybody remembers, high impact aerobics. That's how I started. It was a love at first sight. I love being in front of people. I love talking. I love educating. And it was just a natural thing. And yeah, might have started with a little bit of a bad relationship with food and exercise. And I ended up blowing my back out when I was 29 from being an exercise addict. You're like, oh, I was like, oh, I was diagnosed as an exercise addict. Well, there's other things that are worse, smoking, drugs. How is that so bad? Now in life, learning, understanding that exercise addiction is a real thing. And it is not a good thing. We think it might be as a good thing, but it really isn't. It does wear and tear on the body. As I'm going through being a pharmacist, seeing there's definitely something going on with disease states, and that we need to figure out something else besides medication. I am a pharmacist who prefers that somebody is not on medication. And being in the fitness industry, having a lot of different nutrition certifications, I would always see this constant dichotomy of people trying to lose weight, seeing the same body shapes in the gyms, no matter what they did, and nothing changing, and trying to figure out what's going on. And then also in my own life was, I'm older than you, so yeah, I went through perimenopause and menopause, and I'm gaining weight like crazy. I'm working out like crazy, and I am not perfect. And I am somebody who also wants a different size in 2 days and wants that quick fix. And even though I had all these nutrition certifications, even though I'm a pharmacist, and even though I'm a fitness pro, I still was like, oh, well, let me try keto. Oh, well, let me try this. And because we want that so quickly, but realizing that, I need to change and I need to shift. I started looking into a program that several of my instructor friends were doing. It was called The Faster Way to Fat Loss, and seeing their amazing results. And I was waiting for them to gain it all back. I thought, they're going to gain it back. This is not going to work. And what I saw was them getting healthier. their skin looked better. Their muscle tone looked better. They were changing the shape of their bodies, and they weren't going backwards. They were going forwards. And that really piqued my interest. And I'm like, 2019, before the pandemic started, I threw a Hail Mary pass and said, you know what, I'm just going to try this. Even though I'm a pharmacist, and I was like, I'm a pharmacist, I'm a fitness professional, I'm a nutrition coach. Why can't I get my together? I, thought I knew everything, which I obviously don't. And being like, okay, let's go with this. And realizing that there's so much more out there, really diving into the science, diving into what works for our bodies, that we are just one big chemical reaction and that we need to fuel our body and that we also need muscle. During that same time, I am seeing, especially with a pandemic and now, is that the people in my nursing homes are getting younger. Millennials, Gen Z, not just, not just boomers, and then also me who's Gen X, and seeing this and being like, what is going on? And realizing that my calling was to get back into nutrition coaching, to put my pharmacy, my nutrition, and my fitness together to help women like me, whether you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or older, to learn how to stop chasing skinny, to start working on our health, to start working on our muscle so that we can live our best lives no matter what age we are. And then also to help people who say, you know what? No, I don't want to end up in a nursing home, or my doctor just gave me this diagnosis and I don't want to end up on medication or end up in having diabetes and insulin and all the things that come with it. So it's kind of a full circle. It started with jumping jacks and doing high low and becoming a pharmacist, and then it's just kind of progressed, and I'm now what I call the nutrition coach pharmacist, and that's my business.
It's actually truly amazing. I was waiting for that moment where it all just like intertwines for you,
Yeah.
and it's just a lovely combination. Like I haven't really seen anyone much as what you are doing. So, could you tell us a little more? Let's piece it all together. Could you tell us a little more about how it is that you help people with regard to nutrition? Because a lot of the information out there, there's just a ton of
Oh,
information.
yeah.
And sometimes people do really get confused. Like they see something and then they think that it's going to work for them, but then it doesn't. And then they chase another type of diet plan. So
Mhm.
what is it that you would like to share with our audience today when it comes to nutrition? What is it that is really important for everyone to understand when it comes to how they deal with food and how they should relate, or the relationship that they should have with food?
Yeah, great question. So I coach virtually. Pandemic did something. It's like, so
Yeah.
I have clients all over the world. It's kind of cool. Time changes are a little weird,
Yeah.
but I even have one in Denmark right now. And everybody, no matter where you are, whether you're here or Europe or Hawaii or
Mhm.
Australia, especially females, we're all given the same BS. We are. And yes, do they have better food quality in Europe? They do, but they still have the same belief systems that we have here in the US. So, we see the obesity epidemic here, but we don't realize that it's everywhere. And a lot of
Exactly.
that is ultra processed foods, the convenience factor. And what ultra processed foods are foods that have additive chemicals, sugars, colors, you name it. It's also made for convenience, but it's also made for you to want and almost be addicted to. And what we have to do nutrition wise is one, we got to stop chasing skinny. And I say that with all the love in my heart, and not going for the FOMO of, oh my God, this program. Oh, let me try this. Oh my gosh, this program. Let me try this. Because what you have to realize is that if you are feeding your body chemicals from a shake, from a package, from wherever it is, and whether it says it's healthy or it's going to help you lose weight, One, can you do that for a long period of time? More than likely is no. And we have set ourselves up for failure with the yo-yo dieting. And it's not your fault. And that's what I want to understand people. It's not your fault. It's the misinformation that you've been given is that you think, or they tell you that you're going to lose weight, this much weight in this period of time. You may or may not, especially if you do it again, you may find that you don't because you lost muscle mass. The problem is that they don't tell you that you're going to gain it back. But they're very happy that you gain it back because the diet industry is a $3 billion industry. And guess what? They're going to make you feel like it was your fault that you just couldn't keep up with what they say and that you need to do it again and again and again. But you wonder why this quick fix didn't work the second and third time. It's because every single time you didn't fuel your body needed nutrition from somewhere. So unlike what they're going to tell you, they're going to say, hey, you're going to get it. You're going to burn fat. BS. No. Unfortunately, most of it's going to come from muscle. And then the other part is going to come from your bones because your body needs vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. That does not come from fat at all. So you might burn a little bit of fat, but most of it's going to come from muscle. And what happens every time that you do that? You lower your metabolism. So what do you need to do is you need to eat and learn how to eat. And everybody's different, meaning that your age, your energy expenditure, how you're working out. If you're like, I coach a lot of instructors who are finding that they have torn their body apart and they're not eating enough. And so they're wondering why they're gaining weight when they're teaching all these classes is because they're not fueling enough. Same with menopause or perimenopause or you're in your 30s and having kids and trying to figure out what's going on. It all comes down to nutrition. It all comes down to real food, and it comes down to building muscle. We need protein. We need protein to keep our muscle, and we need protein to build our muscle. So if I go down to the bare basics of what we need is real food, get your protein, and build muscle. And those are the tips.
See, everyone, like everybody who's listening and watching us today, I hope that you guys took all those notes from Amy, because what she essentially is telling us is that a lot of the information out there is not really targeted to everyone. Each individual is unique, as you mentioned. And not everything that you get to see out there, although it is something that is very interesting and something that you think would actually work for you, it may, but most of the time it won't.
And it's
So
not sustainainable. You're not gonna be
exactly.
able, and for females, what does that do to our psyche? It's you feel because we put a lot of weight in our size. We put a lot of weight into being skinny, and we put a lot of weight into the success of losing weight.
True.
And then for that brief second that you may got into this great dress or this clothes, and then you go back to be like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I remember keto and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I need a piece of bread. I need a banana, right? And they're like, I just can't go back to it anymore. And the weight comes back on. Like I just had a call with a new client who did shakes and she lost 50 pounds, but she's back up 60 pounds when she went back to what her normal lifestyle was. And she's like, I can't keep doing this. And you feel like a failure. You feel like you had no willpower. By the way, willpower means absolutely nothing. Nobody has willpower. It's if you fuel your body right, you don't have to worry about not having willpower. You don't want the crap. And what we do is we beat ourselves up and think, oh my gosh, I'm worthless. I suck. It must be my fault. I just can't seem to get it together when it's not that. You just weren't given the right tools.
Exactly. Perfectly stated. And thank you for sharing that thought with us, Amy, because a lot of people who do get into like wanting to have that physical transformation, a lot, especially, I do agree with you, especially for women, we do have that thought where when we lose a lot of weight, that's when everything shifts for us. But then when you do gain back all of that weight, we feel so worthless and,
Mhm.
we get depressed and all of that. And so thank you for sharing that thought with us today, especially with our audience. Hopefully a lot of women who are listening now are kind of getting a little shift in their mindset. Now, speaking of mindset, are there particular tools that you share with your clients in terms of also looking into how they change their mindset? A lot of practitioners and experts these days also try to intertwine that with their programming. So, do you also do that for your
I do. I'm a
clients?
certified behavior specialist. So it does come down to behavior. It comes down to also our relationship with food. And you may have heard of like growth mindset compared to fixed mindset. And I always get asked, what is the secret sauce? And the secret sauce is you. You are the secret sauce. It's if you think you can or think you can't. Henry Ford said it. You're right. And if you go into something, especially when you're learning nutrition, especially when you're learning something new and it's totally out of your comfort zone. If you put both feet on the ground, you're just like, nope, can't do it. Too much time, not worth it. I'm just going to go back to my way. Well, of course, you're not going to succeed. But if you
Exactly.
jump with both feet in and say, you know what? I'm going to do this. Not I try. I try is one foot out the door. I try gives you the permission to say, peace out. If
Mhm.
you say, okay, this is it, I am going to focus on my health, not the scale, and really see what I can do with this and learn new ways and embrace new ways, you will be successful. It's the I get to instead of the I have to. And it's a definitely slow process and a switch that gets flipped. But what you don't want to do is what we're going to see in January. It happens every year. Oh, clean out the pantry, join the gym, going to be there at 5 a.m. And you're doing a whole major life overhaul in less than 24 hours. There's no way you're going to stick to that. No way. So you do need to start with steps. You do need to start with baby steps. You need to have a plan. And then if you don't have a plan, that's where you kind of like get off kiltered, off center. Because when you have a plan, it's a little bit easier to check the boxes. And every day you get a little bit better. Every week you add something to that plan so that you're setting yourself up for success.
That is that is also very, very crucial, and a lot of people should be able to really look into that as well, especially for those who always try to say I will do it, like, "Oh, it's Monday next week. I'll start on Monday." Or, "Oh, it's already the middle of the month. I'll start next month." So it's always that type of thinking for everyone. Everyone kind of finds a little switch of an excuse that they kind of think of so that, they kind of just don't do it instead of
Well,
doing it, right?
as women, we think we have to be perfect at everything. And we think if we don't do perfect, it won't work. What you
Yeah.
have to realize is progress is amazing and progress will work. You get better 1% every day. It's going to add up, but you got to start.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
I mean,
that.
you have to start. And
True.
am I saying you're never going to allow to have a cookie or a piece of pizza or something? Absolutely no, because you have to find balance. And it has to be
Exactly.
something that you're doing that is not going to set you up for a binge. We know we all act like perpetual 2-year-old when somebody says you can't have this, and that's the first thing you want, right? So when it's something
Exactly.
that's built into the program, it's lifestyle that we're coming up to the holidays. All my clients have the tools to be successful so that they don't move backwards during the holidays. Because when you fuel your body correctly, you don't want the stuff. And when you fuel your body correctly, you can make the right decisions as to, oh, okay, well, this looks good. I'm going to have this, but it's not going to set you up on a downward spiral where you're like, oh, Friday, okay, went out of control. Might as well go Saturday, Sunday. Okay,
Yeah,
we'll start Monday. And then that just snowballs into, okay, we'll wait till
true.
January. But when you have a plan and you're fueling your body, you're going to be set up for success.
Precisely the thought that many of our viewers should look into. Now, of course, you've been in the fitness industry. You've been having a lot of clients over the years as well, I'm sure. But with all the information out there these days, is there one particular thing that you would like everyone to know? Maybe a health and fitness myth that you absolutely do not want anyone to agree with anymore. There's a lot, right?
There's a
There's a
lot.
lot.
There's a lot.
And even if
So
we tell them to, and correct them, it's like everyone's still like, "Oh, no, I still believe in it." So is
yeah.
there something that you would like to share with our audience today that
So
maybe finally
yeah.
changes their mind?
I mean, there's gonna be two, one that's old and
Sure.
one that's new.
Okay.
So the old one is calories in equals calories out. That does not work. It never worked. If it worked, we'd all be a size 2, but
Exactly.
it doesn't. And we can't every time that we starve our bodies, every time we overwork out and starve our bodies, we're using muscle. So we are increasing our cortisol levels. We are dysregulating our ghrelin and leptin. Those are two hormones that are used that our body uses for biofeedback mechanisms if we're hungry. We have increased our insulin resistance. We have decreased our insulin sensitivity. We have screwed up our sleep, all with that calories in, calories out crap. And, physicians will still say, well, you need to stop eating. No, you just need to eat the right things, the right amount, and you need to build muscle. That's what we need to do because we need to fuel our bodies so that we save the muscle and that we build the muscle. Hands down. The second thing that's going on now is that the only way that I can lose weight is taking Ozempic or Wegovy. And
Boy.
that cannot be further from the truth. You will see it. You will see your friend, your sister, your neighbor, all of a sudden they're dropping weight. And you're like, but. Okay, let me tell you what's going to happen the next 5 years. One, we're going to see a lot of things called gastroparesis, and we're already seeing that. That's where the GI tract shuts down, that it stops moving. Not a good thing. The other thing that we're already seeing is the composition of your body, of those people who are on it, is that they're actually increasing body fat and decreasing muscle mass. And if you think where I said before, what happens when you decrease muscle mass, your metabolism slows down.
Exactly.
So you're never going to get off this medication. And it's not a cure, it's a treatment. It was meant for diabetics, and now we're using it for weight loss. Yeah, it might help with heart disease, it might help with diabetes, but we're going to replace that with something called frailty. And frailty, if you think about someone who's old and, frail, their bones break easily, they shuffle, they can't pick up their feet, they have a hard time sitting up, they can't get out of a chair, they have to use one of those chairs that pulls you up. That's frailty. This is what we're going to start seeing. We're going to start seeing that in 30, 35, 40-year-olds because, once again, your body needs to survive. It's going to use muscle. It's going to use the minerals that come from your bones to survive. Will it use some fat? Yeah. But if you're not fueling your body, there's a small portion of people who are doing this right because they're fueling their body and they're lifting weights and building muscle. But most people are like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm not eating. This is great. I'm not hungry. And we wear that with a badge that we're not hungry. That's not a good thing. Not a good thing.
It definitely is not. I personally have been there, done that, and yes, no, it is never a good thing for you to go on starvation mode. Now, of course, Amy, we only have like a limited time in our show, and I would really love to continue this conversation. But of course, we need to wrap things up over here for today's episode. But before we do, is there a final piece of advice that you would like to leave with us today?
Two things. Always go back to the basics. Real food, lift your weights, and then I always say, and I cannot stress this enough, that you are the secret sauce. You have the power to change, the power to get healthy, the power to get strong, to stop chasing skinny, that you don't realize how awesome you are now. And remember that, because you're awesome now. No matter what weight, what size you are, you're always awesome. What we need to do is just focus on the health, and you have the power and you are the secret sauce.
Excellent, excellent advice to everyone, Amy. And thank you again so much for joining us for today's episode. Now, to everybody who's interested in seeing the rest of Amy's wonderful, wonderful services or programming, I will be leaving all of her wonderful details in the description box below. So please go check that out. Now, again, our show has come to an end, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in today's BetterU podcast. And before I go, of course, let me remind you to never give up on your movement journey because it's never too late to move. Bye bye, guys, and see you again next week.